Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, the first child in a vivacious, tight-knit Catholic family.
Every single person, my dad used to say, no matter who they are, Joe, is entitled to be treated with dignity. A word, I think, that is probably used more here in Scranton, at least in my experience, than anywhere else.
Soon, tough times. His dad's business failed, and he ultimately moved the family to Delaware for a job. Tony Allen, president of Delaware State University, was a speechwriter for Biden in the 90s.
He tells the story of his father losing his job and the family having to move to Wilmington.
My dad, who fell on hard times, always told me, though, champ, when you get knocked down, get up. Get up.
In high school, Biden thrived as an athlete, but classmates called him Dash for his stutter. Author Stephen Levingston.
He was subjected to a lot of bullying, and he didn't want that to define him. So he worked really hard, staring in the mirror and working his lips and trying to make sure that he could speak.
He stayed in Delaware for college, and on a spring break trip, he met aspiring teacher Nelia Hunter. They married 2 years later. Biden got a law degree and almost immediately jumped into local politics in the state's largest county.
Joe Biden started his political career as a Newcastle County councilman.
The 20-something councilman soon had 3 small children. He also had growing ambition. And in 1972, Biden ran for U.S. Senate, an utter long shot.
Let's take a look now at some of the very close Senate races. Delaware is the first state. J. Caleb Boggs, who is the incumbent Republican, being challenged by Joseph Biden.
By just 3,000 votes in the end, he won. Biden was an instant national headline. Days after the election, he turned 30 and celebrated with his wife. But 1 month after that, tragedy. A car crash took the lives of wife Nelia and their 1-year-old daughter, Naomi. Their sons Hunter and Beau were injured, and Biden, who initially considered resigning, was sworn into the Senate from beside Beau's hospital bed.
So help you God.
I do.
Congratulations, Senator.
Thank you. If in 6 months or so there's a conflict between my being a good father and being a good senator, which I hope will not occur, we can always get another senator, but they can't get another father.
Terrible tragedy.
Nina Totenberg is the justice correspondent for National Public Radio.
I have a dim recollection of him being sort of a zombie for a little while, just sort of walking through the steps that you take to survive.
Biden commuted on Amtrak some 4 hours a day to be home with his kids at night.
Joe Biden was a complete newbie. He was close to college age. And the people who really had power in the Senate in those days were the Dixiecrats, the old bulls. And he quickly discovered, I think, that if you wanted to get anything done, you had to go through them, and was very effective at it.
Things started moving quickly. In 1975, Biden was placed on the powerful Foreign Relations Committee, and a few years later, on the Judiciary Committee. He met teacher Jill Tracy Jacobs, and despite some proposal rejections, they married 2 years later, with the blessing of young Hunter and Beau.
I'm ashamed of the lack of moral backbone to this policy.
Still commuting to Washington by train, in the 1980s, Biden's life and profile grew. Daughter Ashley was born, and 1987 marked his first campaign for president.
It is the obligation of this generation to care for and protect the future of our children.
Almost immediately, Biden ran into trouble. He had taken to quoting a British Labour Party leader in his speeches. But at an August debate in Iowa, Biden did not attribute the following quote.
Why is it that Joe Biden is the first in his family ever to go to a university? Why is it that my wife, who's sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
Back on Capitol Hill, Biden faced questions about the alleged plagiarism.
I saw that and it was a connect. I mean, I could tell how that man felt.
Within 1 week, he would drop out of the race, just as he faced another test.
There will be other opportunities for me to campaign for president, but there will not be many other opportunities for me to influence President Reagan's choice on the Supreme Court.
Biden, now chairman of the Judiciary Committee, oversaw the confirmation hearing of Judge Robert H. Bork to the Supreme Court. It was sharp from the beginning.
Having watched the Senate Judiciary Committee over the years, this is the one time where senators who were on offense actually were prepared. They asked good questions, they knew a lot about Bork, and Joe Biden led the charge.
Bork failed his confirmation vote.
The nomination is not confirmed.
Just a few months later, in 1988, a health crisis. Biden suffered 2 life-threatening aneurysms. A full 7 months of recovery later, he returned to the Senate floor.
I will not forget the sentiments expressed, the support given. It means a lot. Thank you very much.
Biden got back to work, and as the 90s opened, a new test, the nomination of Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court.
Clarence Thomas, seasoned now by more experience on the bench, fits my description of the best man at the right time.
Biden was still Judiciary Chairman. The committee learned about charges of sexual harassment against Thomas from his former assistant, Anita Hill.
You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Other women came forward to testify, but Biden agreed with Republicans to limit the testimony to Hill alone. The televised hearings gripped the nation.
His conversations were very vivid. He spoke about acts that he had seen in pornographic films involving such matters as women having sex with animals and films showing group sex or rape scenes.
It would all make a searing impression on some women watching, like Amy Allison, the founder of the pro-women group She the People.
I was an undergraduate, and I went to the common room in our dorm to watch the hearings. I saw the way that she was being treated by the white men on the Senate Judiciary Committee, both Democrat and Republican. Joe Biden was among them.
Biden stressed he would run a fair hearing.
I have not made my judgment based upon this proceeding because we have not heard all the evidence.
But his handling of it, and the fact that other corroborating witnesses were never called, has raised sharp scrutiny.
Just as the Republicans were really unprepared for the Bork hearings, the Democrats were unprepared for the fury and the determination of the Republicans, and that they would use any tactic to destroy the main witness against Thomas. Biden thought, my job is to be fair. But his fairness in the end was in many ways unfair to Anita Hill.
This entire proceeding is ended.
Biden spoke about the hearings last year.
As the committee chairman, I take responsibility that she did not get treated well. I take responsibility for that.
Later, Biden used the Judiciary Chairmanship for big policy pushes, including in 1994, the Violence Against Women Act, which created a national strategy for combating and prosecuting domestic abuse and sexual violence against women. He also led on a more controversial bill that was attached, the 1994 crime bill that imposed longer sentences for drug crimes and other offenses.
It may have seemed and did seem entirely reasonable in the middle of a crime epidemic. But in hindsight, it resulted in locking up a generation of black and brown and poor white people.
The gathering threat of
As the new century opened, with George W. Bush elected twice, Biden again thought it was his time. And he started dropping hints that he wanted another shot at the White House himself. In 2007, Joe Biden had been a U.S. Senator for 43 years, ready to try once again for a different job.
Friends, today I file the necessary papers to become candidate for President of the United States.
In early January, he announced he was running for president.
All right.
But it was a rough start from the beginning. In an interview with the New York Observer, Biden described his presidential opponent, Barack Obama, saying, I mean, you got the first mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and is a nice-looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man. Add to that stumble, he was battling a crowded, star-studded field. Author Steve Levinston wrote the book Barack and Joe.
Joe Biden's 2008 campaign flamed out pretty quickly. He never really got any traction.
Biden dropped out in January 2008 after placing 5th in the Iowa caucuses. He left the trail, choosing not to endorse either of the frontrunners, his fellow senators, Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama.
Hope is what led me here today.
In late May, Obama emerged as the presumptive nominee, in need of a running mate. Patty Solis Doyle was waiting for the news too. She was chief of staff to whomever would be picked for VP.
Obama and his team were really looking for someone who could partner in the actual governing because there was so much to do. They were looking for someone who could bring some of the demographic constituents that the then nominee did not have, in particular, white working class voters. And lo and behold, Joe Biden checked all those boxes.
Obama was just a junior senator who didn't have a lot of experience with legislation, getting things through Congress. Biden was a master. He was able to go across the aisle. He could really help Obama legislatively.
On August 23rd, Obama announced his choice.
Joe Biden is that rare mix. For decades, he's brought change to Washington, but Washington hasn't changed him. He's an expert on foreign policy whose heart and values are firmly rooted in the middle class.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is no ordinary time. This is no ordinary election. And this may be our last chance to reclaim the America we love.
Right away, Biden hit the campaign trail.
Welcome to the first and the only 2008 vice presidential debate.
In a debate hosted by NewsHour's late Gwen Ifill, Biden took on his vice presidential opponent, then Alaska